I'm really excited to be part of this series that you and Deborah Pugh are doing, and Susan Moffat's series also. So my grandmother, who lived in Piedmont on Florida Avenue, 100 Florida, had a spinet, which is sort of a smaller version of an upright piano. And it's now at my father's house, where my father lived before he died in 2014 in North Berkeley. So it needs to be moved out of the house. And my original thought was just move it out somewhere and play on it and let it go to the elements. But now it turns out that someone is actually going to take it, which is really great. I used to play Schubert on this spinet for my grandmother, and she particularly loved the Schubert A-flat minor impromptu. And, you know, so I would play that for my grandmother, and she'd love it. She'd ask for it every time I saw her. The spinet over the decades it's in pretty good repair, but it's very out of tune. It has what the piano tuner Shabda Owens calls a found tuning. And actually it sounds good in some ways right now, but Shabda Owens is at, you know, just out of the goodness of his heart, he's coming down from the Sierra foothills and he's going to tune the piano the afternoon of the concert, which is Wednesday. And I decided I really want to play music that sounds especially good on an upright or spinet piano, because a lot of piano music, like you think of Rachmaninoff sonatas or big Chopin, you know, fantasy impromptu or whatever, would not sound good on an upright piano necessarily. So I'm thinking of music that's sort of gentler and sounds good outdoors, and music where we can be separated from each other, a very, very small audience, socially distanced with masks. And so I've chosen two composers to play. One is the Ethiopian nun Emahoy Tsegué-Maryam Guèbrou, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name. She's 96 years old, and she's composed about 100 plus short pieces for piano. Very beautiful, sort of trained in the classical, Western classical tradition, and then also mixing that with sort of idiomatic blues, sort of modal, beautiful, very expressive. And her recordings, you can hear her recordings online. She's playing them on a kind of an old upright piano. So she's one composer I'll play. The other composer is Mamoru Fujieda from Japan, and he writes patterns of plants, which are all about the voices of plants. And that's his life work, is putting the voices of plants into music. And he has a device that he hooks onto the leaves of the plants, gets their bioelectric fluctuations and their data, and somehow translates it into music. And he's influenced by Baroque music, Celtic music, but there also is something quintessentially Japanese in their gentleness and their lovely kind of quietude. So those are patterns of plants by Mamoru Fujieda. And the first time he invited me to come to Japan, this was many years ago, one email from him said, would you come to Tokyo and perform my music on an old upright piano, an old German upright tuned in Werkmeister 3 tuning in the dining hall of a Frank Lloyd Wright building in Tokyo. And I was like, yeah, of course. So his music, I think he writes a lot of it on this old German upright that he has that he's very fond of. So this is music that sounds good, or was written or was played on upright pianos, and it's just a very special event. I'm really excited. I'm excited to work with you and Deborah and Susan, and to be in Albany Bulb under a palm tree overlooking the bay. Yes, and there's something very nice about the fact that my grandmother and grandfather, who were very avid Nixon supporters and, staunch Republicans, I love the idea of playing music by a 96-year-old Ethiopian nun and have them rolling in their graves.